Steve Fisher. I'm one of the founding partners of Strategy Partners Group. We are a collection of former C-suite operators who have banded together, and now we help other entrepreneurs and business owners and C-suites of other companies improve their enterprise value.
Amazing. And can you share a little bit about your role and how it fits into the larger picture at your company?
Well, as one of the founding partners, one of the service offerings that I particularly am interested in is strategy development, structured growth plan development, and execution.
Amazing. And what does a typical day look like for you?
I'm usually on the phone with 2 or 3 or 4 clients a day, working on whatever stage of the project that they've engaged us for. And I try to rotate my time between half a dozen to 8 clients at any given time. So, and we work, we work in engagements that can range anywhere from 6 to 8 months all the way up to years. In fact, we usually get brought in for a 6-month engagement, and that turns into a multi-year engagement. There's always something to do in a business. It's like owning a house.
What major shifts are you seeing in your industry right now in terms of strategy?
Well, I don't know if it's a shift, but there is a recurring issue that occurs, and it's basically the lack of a strategic plan that many businesses have. They don't understand the difference between a true strategic plan being developed and a wish list. So I spend a lot of time coaching and teaching and helping develop true plans so that they actually can be. Otherwise, it is, as I said earlier, just a wish list. What is your strategic plan for the next 3 years look like? And can you actually answer that? And I tell them, we're not talking about a gut feeling or something you scratch down on a napkin. What is a true strategic plan? And unfortunately, most of them can't answer the question. And I tell them, that's not a judgment. Really, that's just a starting point.
Can you share a little bit more without giving away your secret sauce, but how you're helping other C-suite business owners grow and think about transformation?
Well, the first thing is we talk to them about some of the hidden costs that they're currently incurring by not having a real strategic plan in place, how it impacts their talent and culture, for example. Oftentimes, the reality is that your high-performing employees want a direction. They need a clear vision given to them and a direction for where they're going to go within your company. If you don't provide that for them in the form of a strategic plan, they'll do one of two things. They'll either create their own and fill that void with their own, or they may end up just going elsewhere. And so what ends up happening is you see these companies that have a high turnover rate, and it's sometimes that high turnover rate is actually due to a lack of a strategic plan being disguised as a people problem, but it's actually a deficiency that you have in your organization. Another impact of not having it is on the valuation, the salability of your company. One of the things we always talk about is you should build and manage your company as if you're going to sell it. Not even if you may never do that. Reality is, you're going to exit your company somehow. How much control you have over that is up to you. But as far as, even if you don't know you're going to sell your company in the next 5 years, if you run it as if you are, if you hit those key things that increase the value of your company will be much more efficient. So we talk about that.
Steve, can you share with us a little bit of, how this AI, transformation and the development of AI and technology is impacting your growth, your business and growth strategy?
It's so funny. If you had asked me 6 months ago, well, you could have asked me because I was asking myself the same question 6 months ago, which is how can I use this technology in my own firm? And I was sitting there and I was looking around and trying to see, how do I really, how does it apply to me? And here I am 6 months later and I am using it all the time. The ability to expand my bandwidth is really what the big key is. We'll call them high-level clerical work, research work, things like that I would spend hours doing, obviously now happens in an instant. I can do it. It's really about learning to ask the right questions. So that's just me in the consultant space. But we all know that there's all kinds of chatter now about how it's being implemented in all kinds of businesses. And the reality is it's here. So you're going to have to figure out how to use it because your competitors are using it.
Tell us, Steve, what is working well for you and your firm right now?
I think what works well is there's so many, with the AI disruption that's currently going on among all kinds of other things that have been going on in the economy. I think the fact that our message of, hey, stop, breathe, really start thinking bigger picture, really start thinking strategy. That seems to have a calming influence on many of the executives I speak with. They seem to appreciate the fact that when I tell them that, hey, take 90 minutes of your week here, just stop for 90 minutes and start focusing on, what are the top 3 things from a strategy perspective I need to be focusing on in my company.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And And what's been frustrating in 2026 as a business owner and as you grow your firm, as you grow your clients' firms?
Well, the frustrating part is that, I'm often brought into a situation where there is chaos, and
Mm.
I'm brought into, and clients are reaching out to me because they recognize that they are in a chaotic environment. And unfortunately, when people come up with the entrepreneurial mindset, which is great in so many ways, one of the problems is these folks generally come up as operators themselves, and they're used to fighting fires and used to tactical thinking, and they basically have the philosophy that the chaos is just part of running a business. And I'm in here telling them that no, the chaos does not have to be part of running your business. The point is, it's a symptom. It's not an end state. It's not a continuous state. It doesn't have to be that way. And in fact, talking to them about how with the development and execution of an effective strategy, the chaos calms down, and then you can think, and then you can compete in your market at a higher level.
What's a sign that you see amongst all those companies where they may think, hey, this is actually my company, this is me?
Well, what you'll see is you'll see things like this reactive decision making that's occurring, or hiring. Sometimes their hiring process is driven by a crisis. It's not driven by their capacity planning. The big one I see is revenue is inconsistent, and that's because their growth's not being managed. It just happens. They're not actually managing that growth. They're happy that they're having growth, but if you don't manage it, it is possible to grow yourself out of business, which is not good, because that occurs when you don't have the support structure in place to support the growth. If you start feeling like I'm making gut decisions all the time because this feels good in the moment, that's a problem. If I were to ask your leadership team, hey, what are the top 5 priorities of the company, or top 3 priorities of the company? If they all couldn't answer that question in the same way, you've got a strategy problem. You have a case where you recognize that you have employees that have incredible knowledge bases, or incredibly talented employees, but you recognize that you are so dependent upon either a few key employees or a few key clients that you are at high risk, and you're terrified of that. These are issues that, if you're in that position, that tells you you have a strategy deficiency issue.
Yeah, lots of great nuggets there. And Steve, what metrics are you most focused on improving in your business, or be your clients' businesses?
I would say generally, I'm looking to do, as I mentioned earlier, I like to consult and advise my clients to manage and build their businesses as if they're going to sell it. So what does that mean practically? What that means practically is you demonstrate growing and diversified revenue. 1. 2, you have a team of leaders in your organization. 3, your processes and policies are documented. And 4, and this is the one that gets owners probably hardest of all, is you've got to reduce the business's dependency on you. And again, if you think about it, Kay, if you're building and managing with an eye towards selling, the buyer doesn't want to buy you. They can't buy you. So if if you go away and the business collapses, that's no good. The business has to be as turnkey as possible for somebody else. I tell business owners all the time that, the more valuable you are to the day-to-day operations of your business, the less valuable your business is to anybody else.
Right. And then growing the diversified revenue, same thing, asking if somebody's listening here thinking, oh my gosh, is my revenue diversified enough? Or what's a simple test that you can ask?
What happens if you lose your top client? That's one big one. Look at have you ever actually focused on your revenue mix? What your service offerings or product lines, whatever the type of business you're in, are in, and then if you are heavily concentrated in one particular line, really define what the risk to that is, and what does the business look like if it goes away. I mean, you can survive, you probably can survive a 10 or 20% temporary loss of revenue. It'll hurt for sure, but hopefully you've built yourself a position where you can survive it and replace it over time. But if you've got a revenue stream that's 70% of your company, you're playing with some fire right there.
Yeah. Amazing. That was great. Great to hear that. And Steve, where do you want to be 6 or 12 months from now? Or where do you kind of envision your firm being 6 to 12 months from now?
I'd like our firm to be more known outside of the Southeast of the United States. Right now, we are based here in Atlanta and Charlotte. And what I'd like is for us to have more of a national, people have more of an awareness of us nationally. I mean, I have had some cases where people have reached out to me from California. I had an executive from ADP reach out to me from Chicago. And I always ask the question when I get a call like that, it's like, well, how'd you find me? Because, I'm not a KPMG, right? I'm not yet. And so it's interesting to see how they do find me.
If you had a magic wand to fix just one thing in your business that's holding you back or slowing you down, Steve, what would that one thing be?
I think it's just what I said. It's awareness. It's awareness of what we do. It's also awareness of how we are different. Well, I guess the action items are, do you really have a clear and compelling vision of your future? Do you have actually defined strategic priorities? Again, not back of the napkin stuff, true written plan. Do you have the accountability and metrics in place to execute on that plan? And understand that you can't flip a light switch and this just happens overnight. You have to, the development of a plan and execution of a plan, and to have it really stick in an organization can take 18 months, 24 months.
And how would you advise C-suites, especially in the age of, everything is just moving so quickly. There's AI is developing so rapidly. Do you still believe that 3-year plan should exist? And then the flexibility around that, how do you advise C-suite, owners and founders to navigate through the rapid changes?
Okay, based on that, what you told me you want to be in 3 years, where do you have to be in 6 months? And if they can't answer that question, that tells me they don't have a plan. So once you establish where you need to be longer term, then you need to break that down into discrete steps and discrete milestones. And if you haven't done that, you don't have a plan, you have a wish list. With proper metrics and accountability in place, the question that gets asked is things more specific, like, why is our utilization down and what are we going to do about it? You are then on the road to a better execution of a strategic plan. I think, to me, it happens when leadership begins to fully understand they have full visibility into their organization. When they get that and they feel comfortable with that, people want to work with a leader who is calm and cool and in control. And if you are not, you can try to mask it, but it's hard to mask that from your team who's around you all the time. They can pick up on subtle cues.
Amazing, Steve. Well, phenomenal conversation. I think, your knowledge and insights definitely add a lot to our community. And, if somebody wants to learn more about how you work or your services or learn more about your company, what is the best way to contact you?
Well, if you go to our site, strategypg.com, you will see all of my contact information for myself, my partners out there. You'll see all the types of work we do, some of the clients we've worked with in the past out there as well. So that's the best way. And feel free to reach out to me, phone call, email, whatever. Like I said, all my contact information is there. I always tell everybody a conversation doesn't cost anything.
Amazing, Steve. Well, you're running your successful company. I think you definitely have that creative and executive leadership skill set under. And so thank you so much again for sharing your knowledge with our audience today and sharing your insights. And thank you so much again for being on our show today.
Thank you very much for the invite. I thoroughly enjoyed it, Kay.